I'm doing the best I can to show solidarity in eating. See, it's hitting me already. Eating fast food, like so much of it in like a 4.5 minute time span right before recording. It was a melange of the best of the American cuisine. I had a half of a double cheeseburger. I had a half of a hot dog, and I had a few chicken nuggets and about a quart of ketchup. And
did you cut a hamburger in half?
No, I cut the hot dog lengthwise in half.
Just eat the whole fucking thing.
I knew it was going to be trouble, and I'm saving a bit for later. But if I had it now, like it's going to be a problem. It's not feeling good as it is.
Yeah. It's not supposed to feel good.
That's nobody understands that though, Shane. And that's
it's not supposed.
That's what
to
I like
be a
about
happy
you.
Experience.
That's what I like about you so much is that you understand that this needs to equal pain. It shouldn't be enjoyable.
It's just misery. It's just misery.
Fucking
I
Europeans.
had a chimichanga for lunch. And it was so delicious, and it's just been pure misery since I ate it. In the hot, it's like it's been overcast for like the last 2 or 3 days here, so there's no intense sunlight, but it's still in like the high 80s, and it's like really muggy, and just like sitting in the middle of just like a hot asphalt street eating a chimichanga. I mean, I gotta say I'm a fan. I was a fan of the whole experience.
Living the dream.
Slurping down. I asked for a cherry Coke, and they gave me a Pepsi with maraschino cherries in it.
What? Where?
And I was happy. I was happy to drink it. I was like, this is genius.
It doesn't sound bad. If I'm honest.
You get a little bit of the maraschino cherry juice, from the jar in the soda.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that sounds somewhat good, actually. I might be interested in that.
It was pretty good.
Like that. I think I'm gonna have to maybe keep my mic on mute the entire time I'm not talking, because to the listener, as you guys know, but as you guys know, my work computer, which is what I've been doing this on, my company, I guess, shut down my access to Audacity and to Zoom and to everything I use to record. So I'm borrowing a computer right now.
Censorship bullshit.
It's corporate censorship, yeah. And but so I'm borrowing a computer right now to use temporarily for this, and it is a enormous Alienware gaming PC.
No way.
And the fan is so loud that it's actually, I'm noticing the Audacity is picking it up. So. Hopefully it's not going to be too bad,
dude. That's the commitment that you make to being a gamer.
Gotta make it work, man. Gotta make it work. Well, what's cool is that what also comes with borrowing this to record, it also comes preloaded with City Skylines, Control, Cyberpunk 2077 or 2077, and which is supposed to suck, right? But also Counter-Strike. So
I know all of those things.
Oh, and Steam. So City Skylines, that's the one I'm most interested in.
Yeah, City Skylines is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna give that one a try.
Should I be playing this game? Is this a game I should be playing?
I mean, did you like SimCity as a kid?
I loved SimCity.
Yeah, it's basically the sort of spiritual successor to SimCity.
Really?
Yeah, it's sort of just like an updated 3D. I mean, because I think the SimCity games are still being made, but they kind of just fell into dog shit territory. But by other comparable kind of modern standards, and City Skylines, I found to be pretty good. There's also that came out probably 2014 at this point, and there's like a huge modding community for that. I mean, I've watched videos previously, like a couple years ago, someone building this entire cyberpunk futurescape thing using all modded pieces down to these tiny little detailed objects that they were dropping in the world, and it was they were spending hundreds of hours doing it. Fascinating stuff.
I want to make a city, and I'm just going to recreate suburban hell and suburban architecture.
Oh yeah, I've done that. That's fun.
Can I I mean, do you see the pain and the expression of somebody that's in traffic for 2.5 hours, even though it should be a 20-minute drive?
You don't see their face necessarily, but you can cause. I used to have a big thing with that is the logistics of it, right? And so I would have big traffic problems. There's a lot of ways to add different kinds of public transportation routes in the city, but it's all still fundamentally modeled on like the endless urban suburban growth kind of model of like as your city is expanding. The most fun I found, because the only thing that it was lacking compared to the old SimCity games, of course, would always have the disasters. So after you spent a few hours building a city, you could drop an asteroid on it or like a giant Gundam or whatever, or Godzilla, and watch it kill it. City Skylines, at least when I was playing it a couple of years ago, it didn't have that, but it did have sewage. And so you would have like sewage pumps that would like pump out basically your like citizens' shit. And you would pump it out into waterways. And one of the things you had to do is like, pump it out into rivers and stuff, like further downstream from where you're collecting the water. Otherwise, the water gets contaminated, right? Otherwise, then you're collecting sewage water. So what you can also do is build dams in that game. So what I used to do is I'd make like shit reservoirs where I'd like dump all the sewage out, like a giant dam that would cover, and hold in just fetid brown water, and then delete the dam, and you just watch like a cascade of
hell yeah, dude,
shit descend upon your city.
I can't wait to play this.
Take me.
Yeah, and that was a lot of fun.
Good God.
Is this the kind of thing, like, I really wonder how much time I'm going to have to even, like, what's like the number of hours committed to like how long does it take to actually get like your city off the ground and stuff like that? Like,
it's been a while since I played it. I mean, I used to spend a lot of time on the individual cities. It was like, I remember I got the game right around the time I was like unemployed.
Oh, that'll pro.
And so I was spending a lot of time playing it. It probably takes like a good 2 hours just to kind of like figure out how to do most of the things in the game.
Yeah, sure.
Probably between 5 and 10 hours to like put together a reasonable city. I mean, it's also like you can play with mods and cheats and stuff, so you don't actually have to like, because there's like a money system in the game, right? So you have to like, the only way you can construct new things is by sort of slowly expanding and adjusting your tax policies. There's a lot of weird stuff like politically baked into that game, or any game design, right? Because there's stuff with like, there's like a lot of incentive to like lower taxes, especially because you can, you like in the old SimCities, you can zone for particular things, industrial business, and so if you have like too high of like a business tax, like businesses won't want to come to your city.
Yes.
And stuff like that, so it's sort of it has a model baked into it.
See, I'm not going to be playing any of those games because I'm too busy using Facebook's new Horizon Workrooms virtual reality thing.
Oh, right, yeah.
In fact, that's something we should consider as an organization. I think it'd be really nice if, Mark Zuckerberg provided us a solution to be able to sit next to each other in an avatar format in order to conduct our recordings and our business meetings.
I think that world should be like, what was that game that was just called like VR Chat, where like everybody you could make your 3-dimensional avatar or whatever, and so everybody of course would just pick weird like anime shit or like weird internet meme things, or like somebody would show up as like a horrendous Sonic avatar, or like a deranged looking Mario or whatever, and and then be talking to like Cloud from the Final Fantasy. I believe that's a character from Final Fantasy. I don't know, but weird, just like horrible little like that fucking movie that came out that had its like brief moment. What was it? Ready Player One.
Yeah, dude.
I never saw that.
Yeah,
I liked that. I thought it was good.
I mean, I'm easy. It doesn't.
Thought it was fun. Yeah.
You watched You haven't watched like fucking
yeah, I saw it.
Star Wars, and you've seen Ready Player One.
I saw it in the theaters.
Oh my God.
I don't remember the circumstances, but I remember seeing it, and I I enjoyed it. It was fine. I don't know. It doesn't tip my scales.
It was like a good. It felt like very classic Spielberg, right? Like a very Spielberg like adventure movie, right?
Again, there's only 3 movies that have ever like tipped my scales, which are Trading Places, Coming to America,
yes,
Ghostbusters, and maybe I would throw Jurassic Park in that. And for me, I'm just going to watch those movies. Anytime I need to watch a movie, I'm just going to watch one of those 4 movies for the rest of my life. In fact, I wanted to. I've been thinking about this for like the last 2 years, and I think like this week I was able to kind of articulate it a little bit, which is something I've been thinking about specifically with our case study with the boomers, and about like how they consume media and like, you know, interact with the larger, like, you know, popular society and as far as like cultural things, like, you know, the media that they enjoy. And I've distilled it to this, is that boomers have decided that they are interested in blue chip entertainment, meaning that like there's only a handful of actors and things that and musicians that they have decided that they're going to be entertained by for the rest of their lives. And they're just going to decide that they enjoy a handful of these people. And I call them like blue chips, like blue chip stock, meaning like, you know, a sure thing, like, you know, they're always doing fine business activities, something you can always like, you know, invest in, no biggie. First example that I have for them is Tom Hanks. He's just going to be the actor in every movie.
Sure.
He's just, there's going to be a Tom Hanks movie every year, and you're going to enjoy it. You're going to go pay fucking, you know, $20 or whatever it costs to go into the movie theater, and you're going to enjoy it, and that's it. Meryl Streep. Every Meryl Streep movie, they're just going to watch, and they're going to enjoy, and that's it. And then until they're dead, they're just going to enjoy Meryl Streep.
De Niro.
Hey, he hasn't made, like, a compelling film in, like, he just decided in the 2000s, he's like, yeah, I'm going to do comedies.
Hey, he was
The
in
Irishman,
Limitless. The Irishman, dog shit.
Oh,
But,
come on.
It was so boring. That's
right, let's move on.
That's a peak boomer movie. It's like, watch these men get old and less interesting
What were we gonna,
over time.
What was it, Shane? What were you saying?
Oh, I was just gonna say, De Niro was in Limitless. That was a pretty cool movie.
It was pretty.
I just watched that again.
I've watched the
other
Watch
night.
Mojo on that recently. And
Why? Why?
I'm gonna throw, as far as musicians go, I'm gonna throw Dave Grohl in there. Non-threatening. He's fine. Nobody is, you know, he was in fucking Nirvana, and like now they've just decided he's a nice guy. Oh, he's a dad. He's cool. Everybody likes him, and they're just going to be entertained by him. He's gonna go on SNL, and every time he's on SNL, they're gonna like him. And there's just like a handful of these blue chip people that they've just decided that they're going to enjoy and be entertained by.
You're picking Dave Grohl for like the quintessential boomer entertainer, though. Eric Clapton is right there.
Oh fuck
Yeah, I would say Clapton.
I'm so glad that you brought up his name, because that dude, I've been bearish on Clapton for a very long time. I've been shorting his stock for as long as I can remember. He sucks. And I'm going to say this out loud, and to the listener, for those that don't know, I've been a musician my entire life. I don't think he's that great of a guitarist. I'll take it a step further. I don't think that there's one thing that he can do on a guitar that if I didn't have like 25 minutes that I couldn't do.
Okay.
I challenge Eric Clapton. If you're listening, if you're listening, Clapton, I'm coming for you, buddy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Coming for your throne. Please.
If
please
they only
give me
let me in the
$10,000.
Olympics, man, I would kill.
Dude, if they just put me out there, like everybody would love it. Like if they just like put me on stage and like they put me next to Clapton, I think that'd be pretty cool. Because I could just go up and I could do some sick fills and like they would really like it.
I've got a little bit of distressing news based on your assessment.
Hit me.
I was thinking about Tom Hanks because I can't really remember the last time I saw him in a movie that's coming out. I know he's like rich and established enough now where he does like a lot of producing and he's involved in a lot of stuff, but I was looking it up and apparently in 2022 he's scheduled to be in live action remake of Pinocchio.
See, that's what I'm talking about, dude. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Did they
he's gonna play Geppetto.
Oh!
Didn't they just do that? Am I losing my mind?
There's been several live action Pinocchio movies.
But
This is a
they
Disney
just
one.
did that, right?
Guess who plays Jiminy Cricket?
Ooh, okay. Gilbert Gottfried.
Jack Black.
No, that would be good. Oh, Jack Black would be a good
See,
pick,
he's
too.
another one. Jack Black's another one.
No, it's Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Fucking A.
Yeah. I don't know the kid who's playing Pinocchio.
They could get
let me
like
look him up.
a nobody actor for that, right? Like they can save.
I mean, they have to get a child to play Pinocchio.
You're a nobody
I don't
Get some nobody child.
Oh, I
You're gonna be a
recognized the
star.
kid's face. He was in The Haunting of Bly Manor,
What the fuck?
which really
I'll
sucked
check out
in
the
my
Watch
opinion.
Mojo
But,
later.
Yeah. I mean, I think like there's a I keep up on the Marvel news stuff because I'm looking ahead at this Spider-Man movie that I'm just jonesing to fucking to watch, and I started watching like What If, Marvel's What If,
Okay.
and Dwight, I don't even know if you know like what this is,
No,
but I think
you
the
could tell me
very
anything.
mere concept of it would piss you off, but like there's been like. I think it's like 23 or 24 movies now released in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And so part of their like next rollout of stuff is they're doing all these shows on Disney Plus, right?
Yes.
And so they've done a couple so far, and it's kind of been a mixed bag. Some of them are good in my opinion, and some of them are bad. And so this is like the first like animated one they're doing, and it's based off a series of comics. I guess this is like a real thing in Marvel Comics where there's so many storylines, there's so many characters. They started doing these like what if mashups, and the first time I saw that title I was like, what a joke. Because it's the premise of these is like, what if slight things were different in the Marvel universe? So like, what if instead of Steve Rogers getting the super soldier formula that turns him into Captain America, it was Peggy Carter, his love interest. What if she became the super soldier instead?
Oh, okay.
It's so each episode is like that. It's like, like what if Spider-Man was Spider-Boy? It's
He
like
got
that
bit when he was younger.
I don't know, but like
I'm just spitballing here, Shane.
Yeah, but it's already, it's like a weird, like that in and of itself is such an inward turn, right? It's like we're just going to keep recycling the same like 20 plot lines over and over again. It's such a weird dead end, and it's funny that it's supposed to be like the marker of like this is going to be like this is going to help launch the next phase of this, decades long media franchise that is going to continue. And I kind of follow around on some of the like online communities that talk about this stuff, especially on like Reddit or whatever, right? Where like people, fans get together and they talk about the shows, and people are like speculating. They're like, oh man, I can't wait to see what the MCU is going to do in the next 15 years. And it's like, oh, that's so bleak to be like thinking ahead.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, in 20 years, it'll be like, we'll be on phase 9 and we'll be on season 12 of What If.
But think about
it's such a inward
for
turn.
exactly that reason, like that inward turn. I allege it's like there's so much capital tied up in like media properties and intellectual property, or whatever, that like what they're viewing is a return on investment. And this is like the same thing that that we're going to talk about like with KKR or whatever on the main show. And for those that are little spoiler alert, what we've got going on for this week is like, this particular private equity firm. And like the point of it is not to like, take over an intellectual property or something like that and engage in that business model. It's to just strip it for all of its fucking worth. And just extract as much value out of it as possible. And then fuck it. Like there's no like I'm sure like with Star Wars, like I remember when fucking whatever the first one that came out this century, that was whatever, I don't remember what it was. The Force Awakens?
Yeah, that was after Disney had bought Star
exactly.
Wars,
Like, the whole thing, like the conversation around it was like, can they even just like do fan service, and like are they just going to destroy it? Which, like, I mean, you can.
Well, it's both.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, that's a really interesting one, because I was thinking about that. Also, because I watched this most recent episode of What If, and it was so terrible I couldn't believe it. Like, even by the standards of like the Marvel stuff, which I, typically tend to enjoy, even though that, it varies in quality. Some of it is like really bad, and some of it I find to be enjoyable, like popcorn stuff. This was like just awful, just on every level, like production wise, voice acting, pacing, everything is just so terrible about it. And I couldn't believe it. And so I was like scrounging around on Disney Plus to see what else they got going on. And Star Wars, they had they had, oh god, what was it called? There were 2 shows that were like Disney Plus exclusives. One of them was called like Star Wars Landscapes, and it was a 20-minute video that was like digital renderings of places you've seen from past Star Wars movies.
What?
With like nothing going on. almost like screensavers, just like you know how there's like Earth documentaries, right? And there'll be like a aerial helicopter shot of just like a large valley or waterfall or something,
right,
and like an eagle will fly by, and that kind of footage. It was like that. It was like synthetic footage of like, you know, these different environments. I think it was Star Wars biomes, maybe,
but of like
called
Endor or some shit.
Yeah, and so it was like, and of course it opened up, and I think it was like Hoth, you know, from Empire Strikes Back. And it was like, remember the Empire Strikes Back? That came out in the 80s. You love that. And then there was another one. There was another show that was similar to that was called like Star Wars like Flight Log or something. And these were like 4 or 5 minute little episodes where it was like, take a trip in the Millennium Falcon. Same kind of thing, just like slow shots, like no characters, not even like there's no story or anything. And it's just, they're just like you're saying, they're sort of mining the bare essentials of those intellectual properties, because they realize like there's nothing left to do with it.
Right.
Like there's nowhere else to go with it, right? They tried to maybe do some new stuff in the sequels, and that kind of met with a lot of varied, you know, the response, and so then it's like, okay, what else can we do? Like, you know, they have a show coming out that's going to be like Boba Fett. They have a show coming out that's going to be Obi-Wan Kenobi. These characters that were created now almost like 50 fucking years ago, because there's nowhere else to go. And that says a little bit about like maybe the nature of that particular universe, or the, you know, the creative minds involved in it. But I think it's also, it is ultimately, it's like from a corporate perspective, right? It's like about minimizing risk. It's like, that's why you keep doing adaptations of the same fucking properties over and over again.
Sure.
That's why we're going to have another Pinocchio.
Everything feels like it's written by fucking committee now as well, right? It's just like, this takes all the fucking heart and soul out of anything.
Yeah.
I mean, the biomes thing, it was really, really striking to me, because it was just nothing. You know, it was just like, and the idea that this is a pitch, right? This is like a what could we put on here for Star Wars fans? And I mean, look, at the end of the day, I fucking watched it because I have a morbid curiosity, and it was like staring at the end of my life. You know, it's just like I remember when I was a little kid and I saw Star Wars. Now I'm seeing it again. Yes. Now I'm seeing that planet again.
Honestly, too, like when you describe like the biomes thing, where it's just like the fucking landscapes, what that reads to me as like I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of like a Disney VP to be like, all right, so we have a team, of digital, what's it called? Like when you do visual artists, like digital visual artists or whatever. And we don't have, if we do this, then we don't have to pay actors. We don't have to pay voice actors. We could just pay like the team of fucking ununionized visual artists to work, 90 hours a week to knock this out. And yeah, I think our ROI on that can be, X amount or whatever, given that we're leveraging the Star Wars name. It has to work like that. Like, there's no other reason that they would put out something just so fucking milquetoast. Like, I just don't get it.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not like, a media dude or whatever, but fuck, I like Star Wars.
Well, maybe you like Star Wars biomes.
Yeah, we'll see. I'll go on the Watch Mojo, see if they have that.
It's somehow worse than the Watch Mojo. I really don't know how to describe it. Well, I mean, again, it's just so empty. It's so bereft of like anything beyond even just like any life. And like you were saying too, right? Like it removes any of the need to like even put people in there or like have any.
It's cheaper.
It's so bare bones.
It's cheaper.
Yeah, of course. It's super cheap. I mean, it's like it really just feels like a test render for something. I don't know, or something like the background in a video game. I was really trying to figure out, like, what is this for? Because it's 20 minutes long, and nothing happens in it. There's literally no story or whatever. And I was like, I guess if I was having, like, a Star Wars-themed party, and I needed something to put on a screen in the background on a loop, or if I was a big Star Wars fan, and everybody in my family was a big Star Wars fan, and there was somebody who was having, like, a mental breakdown, and I needed to, like, and I didn't have, like, Thorazine or whatever to, like, shoot them with.
Something non-threatening and calm.
Yeah, just be like, just sit down. Everything's gonna be okay. Look at Hoth.
Look at
Remember Hoth? It's covered in snow. Look, there's the AT-AT walkers.
Oh God.
Remember those from the opening scene of The Empire Strikes Back?
Do I ever?
Why don't we just watch The Empire Strikes Back? I don't know. Yeah, it's really weird. But then again, looking at like the sort of, like I mentioned, the sort of fan community spaces that I was dabbling in, right? It's like there is a demand for this, or people are like really excited about it. They're like thinking towards the future. And for a while, I was like, I wonder, are these like really like young people who are just like really excited that this is going to go on? And I was like, no, I think I based, after reading it a lot, like there's like, it really does seem like these are people in like my demo, like our demo. It's like men in their like 30s. Like super jazzed about this property or whatever existing for another 20 years, and it's like I'm not even like reasonably sure Florida is going to exist in 20 years.
Yeah, speaking
let alone
of,
fucking like Marvel.
Speaking of which, I was just about to bring that up. How's everybody's climate anxiety doing this summer? Because I'm looking right now at this. I've just been like mesmerized by it for the past half hour. I'm sort of like, as we're talking, I'm watching this. Like Google Earth time-lapsed like satellite photo of the water level in Lake Mead compared like in the year 2000 compared to now, and oh buddy, they're doing water cuts on the Colorado River. Lake Mead is at 35% full, and Lake Powell is at 32% full, which are record lows. Lowest they've ever been since the Hoover Dam was completed.
Goddamn.
Not to mention that, but yeah, I mean, when I was in Philadelphia with you last week, there was that thing about the fucking, like, what was it, like 119 degrees in Sicily?
Yeah.
And, God, man. My God, that's the kind of shit that's been on my mind recently. And the UN, there was the UN new climate report that came out on Monday as well. You saw that too?
Did I see
basically,
it?
Yeah, basically, yeah. The main point of that is that we're totally fucked, and even it doesn't matter even really what we do at this point. Even if we ceased all greenhouse gas emissions tomorrow, the Earth would still continue to heat. Everything would still climate change would continue unabated for the next 30 years.
That's right.
And so we're just going to see a whole lot more of stuff like this as well. Clear Lake, California, I don't know if you saw this hasn't been getting as much attention as some of the other wildfires, but there's a fire they're calling it the Cache fire in Lake County, California, which already got ravaged by a forest fire back in, I guess it was 2015. It was when I first got to Northern California. And I've spent some time in Clear Lake, but they just got hit really hard. They got hit, a whole mobile home park burned down, and something like 50, at least 50 private residences. But it's fucked up and it's sad, even because again, it's just another example of the people who are responsible for all this shit are never going to suffer the consequences of it. But people in Clear Lake, Clear Lake is one of the most impoverished cities in the state. I believe Lake County is the poorest county in the state. It's a very rural county.
Wow.
I'm looking at the poverty rate data for Clear Lake right now. In 2019, it was where was it? I just saw it. 33% of the city residents were below the poverty level in 2019.
Fuck?
Yeah, man. So that's the kind of stuff I've been.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the kind of stuff I've been torturing myself with. Yeah.
It's if I really have to be honest with my feelings, the first week after that IPCC report came out, I was a wreck. There's no other way to say it. I mean, just a wreck. I mean, just pit of the stomach thing. The second week after that came out, I was feeling very violent. I was just I don't know any other solution to it because if we live with probably the most entrenched ruling class in modern history, and there's no way that they're going to give up their supremacy, in order to make the world better.
Well, yeah, they're never, as long as fucking continuing this shit is incentivized by the profit motive, they're never going to fucking, what incentive do they have to ever change?
Exactly.
And, that's why I listen to The Daily sometimes, because I hate myself, but that's Michael Barbaro. I've talked about it on the program before. That's Michael Barbaro's New York Times podcast. And they had an episode earlier this week that was pretty good, actually. Sometimes when they talk about something, they'll sort of somewhat do it justice, but they did sort of devote an episode to this UN report, IPCC report, but they never addressed the solution. they never address what the solution is, or they never address the fact that, as long as the profit motive is there, as long as the capitalists are incentivized to continue doing this shit for profit, they're never going to stop it. There's nothing is going to compel them to stop it unless we compel them to stop it.
And even a step beyond that, and this is something that I've been thinking about for like the better part of the year, is that like even when individual capitalists die, the capital itself that they have accumulated has its own gravity, has its own feelings, almost like it has its own drive for self-perpetuation. So like even when a person dies, like their estate has like a profit motive. That's what's so fucking terrifying. Like again, we talked about like early on in the program is like, with something like ExxonMobil, there's no, one individual zealot that is perpetuating it. It is its own thing. And even if ExxonMobil was sold or something like that, and it was converted into this enormous pile of cash or something like that, that pile of cash would find somewhere else to be invested in and exploit. Like that's what's so fucking terrifying about this. Like it is its own fucking life force. And so even like, even if fucking Larry Page or whatever defies New Zealand law to, go in and buy a house and get his fucking economic passport there and shit like that because he thinks he's going to ride out the apocalypse. Like even think about it from their point of view. Like what the fuck is the point of living if you're not like interacting with, a healthy world and like larger society? Like, are they just going to, like, live out their lives? It's so important for them to keep on their money that they would, like, rather live out their lives eating fucking beans in a bunker?
Yeah,
and, like,
I mean, they're not interacting with a healthy world as it is.
Fuck.
They're only they're going to continue interacting with the same people they're already interacting with, which is going to be the other people who are rich enough to fucking, be able to survive anything.
I have a thought about that in terms of like apocalypse.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
But before that, I just
me.
wanted to quickly share before we got off of it, because we talked a little bit about that report last week. I think one of the things I mentioned was that like one of the things is like thinking about how the way in which a lot of these crises manifest, right, is not going to be like necessarily always in these like big splashes, right? It's going to be like things like bumping up against each other, right? Things exposing existing weaknesses and making it worse in this sort of like endlessly cascading fashion. And this was I don't know if you saw this already, but this is a report that came out today in Orlando. The mayor is asking residents to reduce water consumption. And
we're going to see a whole lot more of this. Yeah,
liquid oxygen that is used to treat water is being diverted to hospitals to treat COVID patients. And if water consumption doesn't change, water treatment could hit a critical point. And so that might mean that they're going to have to say like, well, now instead of being able to treat the water, we have to exchange this to be able to deal with the disease, that continues to ravage the country, and particularly that state, because of like a series of policy choices.
Exactly.
And now, all right, instead of the water that comes out of your tap being okay to drink, you're gonna have to start boiling it, and then think about that. I mean, on another level, what does boiling it mean? Well, it means expending more energy. Especially in the middle of then also like a heat wave. Like you have to boil water, and then you have to cool it down somehow. Just even to drink it or whatever. It's these things in a very dark way, like they all become interlinked, right? That's all the facets of the problems are interconnected in a way that like it continues to expose more and more the cracks of the society and put pressures on those cracks, right? It's not just like one day there'll be like a climate storm that kills everybody, although that will happen in a lot of localized places, but like on a global scale, right, or even a national scale, it'll just be again these increasing pressures that just hit the edges of the areas that are around, and so in that sense, right, like for the uber rich, you can flee because all you can do, you can just move from one place to another or whatever to avoid the big things, and it's those smaller cracks that are not going to bother you as much. If you're super rich, and you're in the middle of a hurricane, it doesn't matter if you're super rich. But if it's just the water system is failing for everybody, well, you can stockpile enough water with that kind of money, if you happen to have it, and ferret it away somewhere. But thinking of that wasn't even the dark place I was going to go to.
Go further.
Yeah,
go further.
Take us there.
But
get in there, bro.
I also this week, in addition to keeping up with my Disney Plus content, I watched Threads.
Dude, fuck, bro.
I don't know if you've ever seen Threads.
I haven't. What is this?
It's bad.
Threads is a made-for-TV British film from the 80s that I've known about for a long time, and I have always wanted to watch it, but I've been very scared about watching it. And the premise is it's sort of like a low budget movie, and the premise is just like chronicling the day-to-day happenings leading up to a thermonuclear war and then afterwards. Yep. And so the actual like nuclear attack happens about halfway through the movie. So the first hour is about how would this sort of mid-sized British city deal with it. I think it's Sheffield.
Yeah.
In which was in like northern England,
which also to me is like a perfect city because like it also encapsulates like the bleakness of early 1980s Britain and like post-Thatcherism shit.
It's basically it's like an industrial working class city, right? Yes. And so it follows like a young couple who are about to get married and start a family and all their struggles, and then in the background they're like the great power games between the U.S. and the Soviet Union are sort of like on the news and on newspapers, and then eventually it comes down to it's like, okay, it seems like they're getting closer to a shooting war. What are all the government things in preparation? And of course, everything is inadequate. Everything that they prepare for, everything that like the Civil Defense Authority tells them to do is like effectively pointless and useless. Then the attack happens. That's the scariest thing for me. I mean, if you can just watch that bit on YouTube, and I have previously, and that's why I was like kind of scared to watch the rest of it because I have my own nuclear anxiety, obviously. But the back end of the movie is then after the blast, right? And it actually goes pretty far. I was surprised and I thought it was a really good representation. I definitely recommend it, as bleak and horrible as it is to watch. I think it's a really well-made, instructive film because what it shows is that, like, in the case of a catastrophic event like that, right, it's not simply that, like, the next year will be difficult or the year after that. It's like the whole society is basically just fucked for generations. And it shows, like, what would happen in terms of long-term with, like, nuclear winter, food production, what happens to child rearing, just the massive drops in births that occur not just because of the actual deaths that occur during the blast, but once the blast happens and everybody dies from that and the immediate like radioactive effects, it's like, well, now all the hospitals are loaded, right? Like with the people sick from that, literally all the medical equipment is like used up in a day just to deal with that. So then outbreaks of everything else happen, right? Like diseases that were once conquered by modern medicine start to reappear. And then that in turn, affects food production. Food production drops, again, population drops, eventually down to like medieval levels within, I think, 20 years is the estimation from the film.
Jesus.
And I was just like thinking and watching it, right? Like, what the film does very well is it shows is like what would be like the point in living afterwards, right? Like because one of the things that I guess the British government has, and I imagine the United States had some equivalent, right, was like this idea of, well, we'll delegate local authority to these different kind of like ad hoc committees that can be set up in the case of a nuclear war. And so these like middle-aged British civil bureaucrats all end up assembling in like the basement of the town hall, and they're like trying to like manage the like post-war environment, and like and of course the first thing that happens in the blast is like the entire town hall collapses on top of them so they can't escape, and then they're like trying to establish communications with the outside world, and they're all like doing all this insane busy work according to these like different rules about like how do we distribute food, how do we do all this. And spoiler alert, when people eventually do manage to dig their way into the basement to try to retrieve them, they're all dead because like they just ran out of food and air and water, and you think like, what is even the point like of them? It's like that in the face of such catastrophe, that incessant need to be like, no, we can still manage the society, like we could still take care, we could still be in charge here, we could still exert a certain amount of authority, when realistically, and this again sort of happens in the film, not as explicitly, but when that catastrophe happens, it's not going to matter who is like in the government or who has money. What's going to matter is like who has all the guns, like that it'll be like some generalissimo who sets himself up for life, or like fucking a Morton Joe. It's not going to matter. You could be like, if the climate apocalypse happens, you could be like, oh, I invented Google. They'd be like, okay, well, I'm strapping you to the front of my war rig and sucking your blood to use as gasoline. I don't give a shit.
Can we elevate like the anxiety level of this program? Can you put in like an emergency alert or something, and even like maybe I want to hear like a siren or something like that, and like some warnings. I really want to like get into the fucking anxiety of this shit, because like I have seen most of Threads. I think it was like at least 6 of 10 Watch Mojo clips that were available, and it's like.
Go fuck yourself, dude. That's like, if you want to watch like best compilation scenes from Avengers: Age of Ultron, fine. Don't watch the Watch Mojo for Threads.
Bringing the anxiety up right here. I want like everyone listening to like feel like anxiety coming up to their throats. And like
Screen Rant presents top 10 most disturbing things from Threads. Number 10, the bomb. Let's get the big one out of the way first.
Number 9, the woman who wets herself when she sees the blast. So exactly. So it's like, what the fuck is the point of even like continuing a society when it's just like a complete disarray? Because like everything I heard, like this was like some dharmic lesson that I heard a long time ago, and it's like a little bit of a thought experiment or whatever. But it's like everything that you have was created by somebody else. Like the clothes you wear, the house that you live in, like, even like the raw materials for it that you may have bought to like, live in the house. The point is like, we're like Homo sapiens are colonial animals in the sense that we like live in colonies and we live around each other. We're not like fucking off just, onesie twosies. We live in a society.
What onesie twosies?
That's right. I don't know. And so, but like the point is, we live in like an interconnected world, and like when there are those stressors, as you're describing, that like disallow us from engaging in certain types of food production or transportation or like cultivation or even like energy production and shit like that, and like the consequences are dire, and we're seeing that now. Like especially as you were saying, Shane, with like these cascading disasters that like are interlinked and create worse outcomes because they collide together, is like like with the fucking COVID thing. I mean, I think about it like in Afghanistan, an enormous fucking insane man-made disaster of like hideous policy and imperialism and all this shit. And there's like, even just like the 800 some odd people that were inside the C-17, transport plane that brought people out. Like, we're still in a pandemic. That's still, 800 people in a small enclosed area with like no bathrooms that just need to be there and get out of there because of this man-made thing. Like, I just, it's insane to me. Or the fact that like there's fucking like 2 ICU beds available per, in certain states. Like just the entire state, there's like 2 ICU beds left. And it's like, if only we had a year to learn what we needed to do. Like, how many new hospitals were built? How many how many new resources were built? Like the state was just like, I'm sorry, we're doing eminent domain and we're taking this hospital because, even though it's owned by some private consortium, I'm sorry, we're just going to have to take it and we're just going to have to commandeer it and just have it on mothballs in the case that cases go up again, and we need to be able to handle it. And guess what? None of that got done. None of that got done under a Trump administration, and none of that got done, in the last fucking 8 months of the Biden administration.
And guess what? They're going way up again.
Yeah.
We're going for the high score, baby.
Yeah, man.
I had a weird personal connection to that in a few weeks ago, or maybe even over a month ago now. We went to New York for a couple days, and we saw you guys and stuff. And we were walking around my old neighborhood, and hospital that I was born in, St. Vincent's, was torn down
Yep.
when I was like a teenager, and they turned it into condos.
Fuck me, dude.
And we were like walking right past it, and I was just like, "Yep, there it is." Like that.
There it is.
Should have left the hospital. in retrospect,
God.
It's yeah, it's pretty bad. I mean, again, all, like you were saying, all those connecting elements, that's where the name of that movie comes from, Threads.
Right.
And I know that, it's a little ham-fisted, obviously, because it's trying to get across a specific, idea. But it says at the beginning of the film, sort of like we're all interconnected by like these series of threads, and the idea is like once they start breaking, the whole thing just spirals out of control, right? And that can happen in a very abrupt and quick way with something awful like some kind of catastrophic global nuclear war or whatever. But it'll happen just slowly in so many other different ways. Again, through these sort of things, and they're not like inevitable, right?
Yes.
Like that's the thing of like true resignation and fucking anger, right? It's like they are a series of they're the consequences of a series of political choices
Correct.
that are made that could be averted or could be changed at any moment, and it's like. God,
it's
fuck.
not.
do it. And I mean, and the opposite is happening now in all these states, like at least with COVID, right? They're like not only just not adhering to what needs to be done in terms of, the measures that could help alleviate the spread of the virus and the containment of like new variants or whatever. But there's like a number of states, including Florida, where they're forbidding you from doing masks.
Or they're
like,
punishing
like,
school systems that do
it.
it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
They're like die. That's their policy. Just die.
Yes. It's like it's actively like fucking. Oh, it's so fucking weird, man. I don't know.
Again,
I don't
and like
know.
this is like the thing that if you like try to zoom out and like look at an empire like the United States is, and you say, okay, this is an empire that is just scrambling from crisis to crisis. Remember Andrew Cuomo resigning? That was 8 months ago. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how it feels. Because, obviously it was fucking a week ago or whatever. But it's like, it feels so long ago because what has happened in a country that the United States has occupied for 20 years and spent $2 trillion on and have hundreds of thousands of deaths as a result of its occupation collapsed. Just collapsed. That was just this week. And this was like the week after we were told that basically Earth is going to be a fucking boiling lava pit in like 50 years or whatever. And this was after fucking, Biden said, actually, we need to be, you gotta burn more fuel. You gotta tell the people, you gotta just pull it more out of the ground. We're gonna just be too much price. We gotta think about American working families. His mush mouth is coming in strong, by the way. He's sounding worse than ever. Again, but like with an empire that is like just scrambling from crisis to crisis, like that is an empire in which it's broken and it is not working and it is continuing. I mean, 627,000 deaths just from COVID. Like that's, and what did we do as a result of like fucking 9/11 with the 20th anniversary of which is coming up? Like engaged ourselves in 2 foreign wars, trillions of dollars, millions dead. Four times as many troops that served in Afghanistan killed themselves than were killed in action in Afghanistan. I'll say that again. It was like 7,000 or something like that American service members killed in Afghanistan, and it was like 30 some odd thousand that killed themselves later on. That's insane. That's an insane thing that's happening. And that's just a result of just lack of care and just allowing for, again, like we've said it on this program before, it's like America is like an old fucking abandoned house. And, it's like it was never upkept and the electrical has gone to shit and it's causing fires. It's the plumbing is just like rusted and fallen out. The beams are rusted to have termites and shit. All the fucking paint is peeled off. It was never reinvested in. And even like the Biden administration's best, it's as if the Biden administration was like, the house fell down and now we're going to repair it to look like a fucking old abandoned rundown house again. It's just not cutting it. It's just simply not cutting it. And honestly, like the more I think about it, I'm just like, I don't know, man. The conclusions I'm coming to aren't pretty. Maybe that's just me, but I'm just like, man, I don't know, man. What happens in history? Like, yeah, let me just say this. If the IPCC projections are true, which they obviously are, what would we 30 years from now, what would we wish we had done, and how would we act towards our rulers, like in retrospect? Be like, well, we'll see if we can vote them out next cycle. I just, I don't know, man. Again, like, you know, going back to Chris's question, like, how do I feel about this? Not great. Not great.
I think also, just briefly, because we brought it up, and you know, there'll be more time, I think, later to maybe talk about it in more depth and give it the kind of breadth it deserves. But just because we like mentioned Afghanistan as well, like you know, the human cost in Afghan lives, right? Which is like, right now, it gets unfortunately very sidelined in all of these weird recriminations and people like blaming each other and using it for whatever political purposes, right? I think it is close to over 100,000 people.
Yes,
yes, absolutely.
150,000 people have died, including, again, you know, soldiers, policemen who are working with the government, that we installed there, as well as like the civilian cost and lives, right? Like, and the Taliban, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's a really, like, it is just all across the way, like a totally unfortunate situation. And then it's also an indicator, right, of like, you know, not to like center too much the US's experience with it, but like to point out and criticize rightly, like, you know, the fact that after all of this time, there was no the pure evidence of no long-term thinking in terms of what the goal or what the project is, or, you know, how to help the people who we had been collaborating with for 20 years, right? Like, just like shows like how like kind of failing and weird and decaying the American empire is. And I also, just for my own personal edification, because I've seen a lot of this like go around, and you know, obviously there's like a lot of well-placed blame on Biden for the catastrophe of how quickly things fell apart, and their like inability to like prioritize, again, helping all of the people who have collaborated with the U.S. government under all of these various different assurances that are now just like basically left to fucking you know, hang dry, unfortunately, over there. But you know, the fact that really that there is no planning, when there was that press conference that Biden did earlier this week, where he sort of just like blamed the Afghans themselves. Like, first of all, that's despicable, right? Like to do that. Like, you know, if you're going to take the responsibility, really take the responsibility. But also, like, the thing that I haven't seen as much, because it's, you know, online and particularly in reaction to this news, there's like, it becomes this focused like partisan battle. It's like, well, was it the Republicans' fault or the Biden's fault?
Yeah,
you know,
insane.
like, you know, and you know, if there's any institution that, like, I mean, like, first of all, if you're gonna blame a president, blame Bush the most, right? Like, clearly the most evil, and the most active in others, but they're all to blame as well. So it's sort of like a stupid game to do that. But also, like, in that press conference afterwards, they had like the spokesperson for the Pentagon come up and speak, and they were asked a number of times, like, why wasn't there like a plan? Like, clearly there was no plan for this. And at one point, the Pentagon spokesperson said, look, plans are terrific. And when he said that, I just, like, my brain broke.
Was that real?
Yeah.
I thought that was just a joke.
Yeah. No. He said, look, plans are terrific, but, and I think, like, you know, both from the idea of like prosecuting a war, but and you know, prolonged occupation, and you know, and the awfulness and the death and destruction that's caused, right? Like there should be a lot of blame placed on the relatively autonomous at this point, like, Pentagon and apparatus of the military, that, like, regardless of whatever party's in control, has just been allowed to like prosecute whatever plans, however the fuck they want, in Afghanistan and in elsewhere in America's like foreign adventurism. And it's important to remember that it's, you know, besides just the people at the nominal top of government, right? Like, especially like a guy like Biden or even like Trump, right? Like, they're literally like octogenarian, like, like they're asleep. Like, they don't know they don't know what decisions are being made. Maybe they're like signing different papers or whatever, but it's, you know, it's a rotating cast of generals, who are either serving in Afghanistan or fucking, then serving on the board of Lockheed Martin or whatever. Like those are the guys largely responsible for everything is gone. And again, speaking to similar, like we were talking about before, at the end of the day, like they did accomplish their mission, which was to make a lot of money. Like they did, like regardless of whether or not like there was a sustained whatever nation building project that was successful or there was like a military objective taken, like all of that's kind of irrelevant because the military contractors got a shitload of money. Their stock prices are way through the roof. They can have sustained long-term contracts with the U.S. government going forward. So they're fine. They don't care. Like they don't give a shit.
Bush being a free man out of all this, it's like this is a good time to have a fucking war crimes tribunal after we see just like what an utter fucking failure and crimes against humanity that were fucking occurred as a result of this shit. Like
I remember too that the day
who fucking
that
pays for this? Who pays? Like, where's the fucking justice? Sorry.
The day when the Taliban took Kabul and like the presidential palace and everything, Boris Johnson came out and he was like, we're not going to recognize like the new Taliban government. And it's like, oh, well, you can choose to recognize them or not, but they still exist.
Yeah, they still
they are the government.
Asses, humiliating.
And I think like the first step in establishing whatever like permanent diplomatic relations with the new government should be like handing over the entire Bush administration to the Taliban. That's what I would argue for. I think that's the only way to start on a good faith relationship to rebuild relations with the Taliban. Just to be like, here's George W. Bush, here's Cheney.
Yeah.
We're gonna
have Rumsfeld corpse. Do what you want.
Yeah, we're gonna use like neuromancy to revive Donald Rumsfeld, and you can have him and do whatever you want. Free reign. We're not gonna ask any questions. It's okay. Some semblance moving forward, but yeah, pretty bleak.
Not fun.
Yeah.
Not good.
Well, good night, everybody.
Yeah. Man, I think we just like raised everyone's fucking blood pressure and anxiety. And
if you're feeling a little anxious right now and you're wondering what is the future going to hold in this decaying empire and a collapsing world environment, and you want to imagine more perfect biomes, may I recommend Star Wars Biomes, where you can remember Hoth.
There's no climate change in Hoth, man. Year-round, freezing, yeah.
Mustafar? Yeah. Lava planet.
Really?
You're good. Yeah, that's where Vader built his castle.
Yeah. Good for him. He needed a vacation home, and he said, you know what, I love lava.
You know what, I love the place where I was horribly maimed.
Is that the one in the same place?
It is the same place. Yeah.
Why did he stay there?
Well, that was a decision they made, and when they did Rogue One, they're like, that's where he lives.
Taxes are pretty reasonable, and plenty of geothermal activity. I mean, yeah, it's not my first choice, but it was fine.
Yeah.
Oh God. Stay cool.
May the Force be with you.
Okay. Goodbye.
Armageddon is a deadly day. Armageddon is a deadly way. They're coming for you every day. While senators on a holiday. The army recruiters in the parking lot. Hustling the kids, they're juggling pot. Listen, young man, listen to my plan. Gonna make you money, gonna make you a man. Bam, bam. Here's what you get on M16 and a Kevlar vest. You might come home with one less leg, but this thing will surely keep a bullet at your chest. So come on, sign up, come on. This one's nothing like Vietnam, except for the bullets, except for the bombs, except for the youth that's gone. So we keep it on till you're coming home. Higher and higher, fire, fire, fire. Light up, yeah, light up, fire, fire, fire. So we keep it on till you're coming home. Higher and higher, fire, fire, fire. Light up, yeah, light up, fire, fire, fire. Yeah. Tell me, President, tell me if you will, how many people does a smart bomb kill? How many of them do you think we got? The general says we never miss a shot, and we never, ever, ever keep a body count. We're killing so efficiently we can't keep count. In in the Afghan hills, the rebels still fighting. Opium fields keep on providing the best heroin that money can buy, and nobody knows where Osama been hiding. The press conferences keep